Is my screen visible? Now let's go with Fsx. What is Fsx? Now is my screen visible? So we have seen what is EFS. Now we will be seeing what is Fsx. So what was the advantage of EFS over just EBS? Yeah, yeah. I'm asking you, like, what is the advantage of EFS over EBS? EBS is like elastic block storage, right? Which we studied in the starting, and EFS we studied next. What is the advantage of EFS over EBS? Okay, and uh, so like those are okay, but the main advantage is that it can be shared between, sorry, among multiple EC2 instances, right? You can share it between thousands of EC2 instances. EBS cannot be done like that, and EFS is also kind of like multi-region, right? You can attach it to like any region EC2 instance. So now there is one more file system which is known as FSX. Yeah, the only disadvantage is that EFS cannot be used as a root memory for EC2 instances. Only EBS can be used for that. Okay. Now we'll be seeing another file system which is called as FSX. Now, what is FSX and why we need FSX? So, this is a service. Okay. So if you see, it is one of the services, the Amazon Web Services or AWS. Okay. So EFS cannot be connected to a Windows server or Windows instance. Okay. Now it is not, if it is not like able to connect with the Windows server, we need something which can be connected to Windows server, right? Like EFS for Linux, we should have something for Windows, and FSX can be connected to Windows. So it is built on the Windows server itself. Okay. First thing. Now, if you see, when you create the FSX file system, you have many options. So in the starting, we used to have only two options. One is Amazon FSx for Windows file server and Amazon FSx for Lashkar. But now AWS has increased the number of file systems. Now, so first thing which we have learned about FSx is that it can be connected to Windows and EFS cannot be connected to Windows. Okay, and rest, like it is scalable and everything is always present. Okay. Hmm. Now, why we need FSx? Any idea, Ken or Brandon? Why this? Okay, that is one. Uh, so EFS cannot be connected to Windows. Did you try connecting EFS to Windows? So, so let's say we are going into EC2 for now. Let's say I'm just going into launch instance and just saying EC2 Windows, selecting Windows operating system, creating some new Windows EC2 key value pair and saving it. And we have RDP traffic. I'm just allowing everything and editing the subnet and creating a subnet in 1P and just going for edit. You can see that EFS is not supported on Windows instances, right? So you can only add FSX. You cannot perform any like EFS shared storage or anything for Windows. Let's see for Mac. And then we have the subnet and everything. For Mac, it is supporting, right? Yeah, both support is there. Now Ubuntu will also have both support because it's a Linux version, right? If you see, Ubuntu is also having the support. Rest all are Linux only. Debian is a Linux. So you'll see there is a support. Only for Windows instances, you don't have the support, right? As you can see. Can you see my screen? Can you see my screen? It's blank. Now, again it went blank. It's visible right now. Yeah, EC2, Amazon AWS, you can see or something else. Okay. So now we know that there is, let's say, we cannot connect EC2 to EFS. Now we have come for Fsx, right? Now, how we can create an Fsx first thing, and why we are using Fsx is like because it is kind of like used in connecting Windows server. Okay. Now let's see how we can connect to Fsx. So first thing is we will go to Fsx and we'll go and create the file system. So for now we are only going for Windows file server. We'll be studying about all this in the next lectures. So you can see there is some details given here. Okay. Now is it fine? Okay. So we will be studying only about Amazon FSX for Windows file server for the starting. So you can see it is again like fully managed, highly reliable, scalable. It is accessible for Windows, Linux, and Mac OS, and even device running in AWS or on premise. So you can even connect it to on premise. That means I can connect it to my Windows, which I'm using in my laptop. Okay. Now input output per second, it has 3 GB per second throughput, and it's highly available. It can have single AZ or multi AZ. In EBS, what was the multi AZ? There were four kinds, right? GP1, GP2, IO1, and IO2, which was supporting multi AZ, like multiple area available zones. Ken, Brandon. So IO1 and IO2 are advanced, and they are actually more like multi AZ supported instead of any other type of like uh, storage. So in EBS, only these two are having multi-AZ support, IO1 and IO2. And in case of, let's say, uh, EFS, what kind of support you are having any idea? Hello, can you hear me? Yeah, in EFS, yeah, what type of support you are having? You have two things, right? For EFS, for EFS, IO1 and IO2 are not there. You are having standard and multiple AZ, right? Sorry, single zone. So in the standard, you are having kind of like, let's say, if you are going for uh, some availability zone, pertaining to east, you will have 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, 1E for that particular easy, right? So for that, uh, so you understand that, right? Like how multiple AZ and single area zone works. So when you will use only single AZ, yeah, we did for multiple AZ, which was standard, right? So when will you use a single AZ? Okay. Yeah. So it depends on where you want, like where your EC2 instance is, right? So if you only have a single EC2 instance which is in one availability zone, you do not make it for multiple availability zones. You will use it only for a single availability zone, right? It's not required. So when it is not required, you will not make it in that sense. Now, how S3 is different from all these EBS, EFS? Can S3 be used as a root storage? Yeah, S3 cannot be used as a root storage because of latency. Now, so till here it's clear, right? And now let's see how FSX works. So we have already seen EFS. Uh, in EFS, we have also seen encryption and everything, right? So let's again go through the differences between EFS and EBS, and then let's go through FSX. Okay. So in EFS, you don't have any kind of storage limitations. Okay. But for EBS, you have storage limitations, and it is up to only maximum of 16 TB. Now EFS is object type storage. Again, object type storage is like S3 bucket where you don't have any folders or something. Everything you create is an object. EBS is a block storage. It is already given in its name itself. Now, as you told, EFS is more scalable than the EBS. Now, if you want to store any kind of file in EFS, it should not exceed 47.9 TB. But EBS has no limitation for that. And in EFS, you don't have the storage types like SSD or HDD, but EBS has that choice, like you can either have SSD or HDD. And this SSD is usually GP1, GP2, and you're also having magnetic, and you also have general, which is HDD. Now, data access, EBS can only be accessed by one EC2 instance, EFS can be accessed by many EC2 instances. And whenever there is kind of like any availability zone failure, and if you don't have any snapshots for EBS, you will lose all the data. But EFS can survive at least one availability zone failure. So, any doubts in the EFS and EBS differences? Okay, let's go to FSX. So it is again a scaled share, like you can use it as a shared storage, and it contains two categories usually. One is Windows files, FSX Windows file server, and another is FSX Lusher. So when we are seeing the file system options, you see Windows file server and Lusher. Uh, these two are not that widely used, but we'll study about it uh, in the future. Now, why FSX for Windows file system is used is that EFS is not supported by Windows, so there should be something which should be supported for Windows, and that is FSX. It supports all the operating systems almost. Okay, and as it is built on Windows Server, okay, it supports a wide range of Windows uh, applications or Windows features. You can have such as like administrative user. You can have file restoration. You can have Microsoft Active Directory integration. Now, what is Microsoft Active Directory? Do you know? What is Microsoft Active Directory? Yeah. So see, yeah, actually Microsoft Active Directory, it gives you like it stores information about what you're storing on the network, and it makes it easy for administrators or users to find it. That that is just kind of like a Windows, like you can just search for the directory in Windows, right? And you can also know like how much storage the whole folder or something is taking. So the same kind of like feature is given in the FSX. Again, like EFS, it has single AZ and multi AZ deployment options. Uh, it has backups. It has encryption of data at rest and in transit. So these all are like same as EFS. But what are the benefits of FSX for Windows? So it is just first thing is that it is built on Windows Server. Second is that it is fully manageable. Third is that it is lower cost. Fourth, it is fast and flexible. Fifth, due to encryption of data in transit and rest, it is secure and compliant. And also, it is accessible around multiple area zones if you are taking, like if you are deploying it in multi-AZ. It can also withstand at least single availability zone failure when you are deploying it in multi-AZ. Now you use FSX Lusher when you want high processing speed, or there is kind of like data coming in and out. So you're storing data and you're again utilizing the data. And there what you want, you don't want any latency. So for the such situations you use FSX Lusher. So if you are having a Windows EC2 instance, and in that there is an application which is using uh, storage, and this storage like this application needs the storing to be very fast and even retrieval to be very fast, there you can use Amazon FSX Lusher. So wherever there is storage speed, uh, like it's critical to have very fast storage speed, there you'll be using FSX Lusher. Now FSX Lusher also has kind of like property which makes it easy to be incorporated or integrated into Amazon S3. So Lusher can, So we are still here only, like we are just seeing. So FSX Lusher like can also be integrated with S3. Now, why it needs to be integrated with S3? Okay, so let's say you're having a very huge uh, data in the S3 bucket. Okay, now you want it to be utilized by an EC2 instance. Now, if you incorporate this Amazon FSX Lusher with S3, it can read the data from the S3, okay, and make it available for the application in the EC2 instance, okay, to read it faster or store it faster, okay. So that's why you can see that integrate seamlessly with Amazon S3 and connect with your S3 datasets to your FSX, and you can run your analysis, write results back to S3 and delete your file system. So it makes it everything faster. So whenever you want only one thing, like to use a FSX Lusher, simple. If you want to store faster and retrieve faster, then you have to use Amazon FSX for Lusher. Okay, so till here it is uh, clear. Now, next thing is, let's create a Windows file server FSX. So we have to give the name. We'll just give FSX 1. So multi-AZ, let's keep storage capacity. We can give minimum of 32. So I will just give minimum of 32. So you can specify how much throughput you want, like how much data to be, like what is the speed of the data to be stored. So you can have up to 2048 MB, but we'll take 32 MB. Now, so there is default, and we are having the subnet in the 1D region. So here you can see Active Directory to provide user authentication access control for your file system. You can have AWS managed, Microsoft Active Directory, or self managed. So if you are having AWS managed, you have to create a new directory. So you can have AWS managed, Microsoft Active Directory, simple Active Directory connector, Amazon Cognito user pool. So for now, we'll just use AWS managed Microsoft Active Directory. And again, it will be asked, like when you take a standard edition, it is only for medium sized, and you can see that its cost is about $0.12 per hour. But when you see the enterprise, it's for a large business, and you can see it's $0.4 per hour, and estimated is like 144 dollars per month, and this is $43.2 per month. So AWS always gives you the estimated cost when it knows that there will be a huge cost incurred. Now it's asking for a directory DNS name. So whenever we are starting with like Microsoft Active Directory or something, okay, we have to provide it with some VPC. So before going into FSX itself, we'll start with what is VPC and how VPC is being used. Okay, So let's go with first VPC. And let me also so what is VPC? Ken, hello. What is VPC? Virtual Private Cloud. Okay. So let's say we are having a case study, or let's say you are working as a network engineer. Please make it bigger. At a cloud company. Okay. And now some company is looking for a solution. Okay. The company is thinking that, okay, they want a domain name service. Domain name service is nothing but DNS. Okay. Now this DNS, okay, should connect user requests to some AWS hosted infrastructure. That means like it has to connect to some server. Okay. And also it should be able to route the traffic according to certain filters or certain policies. Now for doing this kind of like task, okay, you would need something known as virtual private cloud. Okay. Now also one more situation is that, let's say uh, you're working in a company again as an administrator or AWS administrator. Okay. Now this company is thinking to move its infrastructure from on premise to cloud. Okay. So they have some application which is actually running on premise, but now they want to move the whole application to the cloud. But they, when they are moving it to the cloud, they might have some security issues. Now this security issues is resolved by the AWS administrator. So let's say when they want to kind of like go from on premise to cloud, okay, they want some encryption to be done on the data itself, so that the data is secure and there will be no data breach. Okay. And also let's say the other security issue might be like after deploying it to, or after transferring it to the cloud. Okay. Now they only want few user to have the credentials to the application, and these credentials are also not long term, but they should be short term and they should be changing every time. So these are the two situations you will be facing as a AWS cloud architect. So you will be also acting as a network engineer and also an administrator. So now to do all these, okay, what you require is, first thing is identity access management. So IAM is nothing but identity access management. So, Brandon, do you know what identity access management means? Ken, am I audible? Okay. Yeah, yeah. So, i- yeah, identity access management actually gives roles. So it actually controls. So in simple or in naive words, it's like it actually gives you a ability or power to see who can control what resources or what services. Okay, in the AWS. So whenever you are adding users, like for a big project, you're adding developers and everyone to the AWS, you can control which developer can have access to what service in the AWS. Now, let's start with uh, first thing is security groups. Okay, so what is a security group? We have seen like we have made security groups and everything, but we never asked the question like what it is actually doing, right? So, what security group does is like it handles the incoming and outgoing traffic. So, let's say this is your EC2 instance. So, to access this EC2 instance, you might have several users, and these users might be kind of like sending request to your EC2 instance. Now, whenever we are creating this security group, we are having inbound rules and outbound rules. So, what these rules are doing is nothing but they are controlling the filtering the traffic. So, sometimes you are providing that okay, uh, HTTP like, and you are saying that anyone, okay, but also you can give not only HTTP anyone, but also you can give HTTP. This is the IP of the person who can control. So then only this person can control the EC2 instance, and rest of the IPs will not be allowed. You can have like that 5 or 6 IPs. So when we go into let's just say EC2 instance, uh, let's go into security groups directly. So EC2, and in the EC2 console, you'll see security groups, right? Now when we go into any security group, you'll see there are inbound rules and outbound rules. So for now, you can see that we are allowing all traffic, all ports. Even in the outbound rules, we are having all traffic and all ports. Okay, so that's why anyone can enter and access the EC2 instance. Okay, so this is not secure. Like when it comes to a big company, so there you have to have like they will give you some filters, and these filters will allow you to handle who is what is the incoming traffic and what is the outgoing traffic for the EC2 instance. So this acts as a security group is acting as a virtual EC2 firewall. Till here it's clear. Any doubt? Uh, Now we have seen how security group works. Now, what are the rules for security groups? So we know that by default, when we saw the security group, this security group, okay, it has inbound and outbound rules. Now, by default, it allows all outbound traffic and all protocols and all ports. And also you have outbound rules, even with the all traffic and all ports and all port range allowed, right? Now, can we change this? So, and let's see how a best like better security group can be created. Now, let's say we are having SG1 trial security group. Now here you can add different rules. Now in the inbound rule, let's say you only want to allow HTTPS, and you can just select my IP. It will allow only your IP address. Okay, now only you will be able to access. And in the custom, you can enter different IP addresses. Like if I want to enter 123.0.0.1, so this is not a real ID, so it's giving me the error. But you can enter any kind of IP address, and you will see that these IP addresses are only allowed. In the same way, you have outbound rules where you can allow custom IP addresses, and you can just type whatever IP addresses you want, 192.3.4.1 or anything, and you can just see. Okay, so the last element is what? Any idea? Yeah. So like that you have outbound and inbound rules. Now, what is the difference between outbound and inbound rules? Can So inbound might be for incoming traffic, right? So what will be an outgoing traffic? So can there be any outgoing traffic? Yeah, the responses are outgoing traffic, right? And these responses also can be limited, right? Like if you have some very like interesting API, or like let's say you are having some service, okay, and the service is only for subscribed users, then it should not give the responses to the unsubscribed users, right? So in that sense, inbound and outbound rules work. Now, security group, if you are connecting a security group to EC2 instance, okay, or any instance, it can be changed at any time, and all the instances connected to that particular security group are updated. So you can change the inbound rules or outbound rules whenever you feel it is required. Okay. Now the next part is like security group controls the ingoing and outgoing traffic. So that is just the first layer. Okay. Now there is another layer which is called as network ACL. So this is nothing but ACL. Now what is an ACL? Any idea? Yeah, it's called as access control list. Now ACL is actually put on top of a subnet. Okay. Now so this ACL comes after subnet. So whenever a user is trying to access the EC2 instance, he's going through three things. Okay. First is ACL, then subnet, then your security group. Okay. So ACL is nothing but access control list. It's an optional safety feature actually, and this also actually it manages ingoing and outgoing traffic from the subnet. Okay, and there are again rules which are listed for access control list or ACL. Okay, now let's see ACL first. Now when we go into the ACL, it gives you like how many subnets are associated with this particular ACL. Okay, and is it the default one, and what is the virtual cloud which is associated with this particular network ACL. Now again you see here rules are numbered, like you are having rule number 100. Again, even in the outbound rules you are having rule number 100. So when we go and edit the, so you can provide rules based on some number. Okay, and the rules are ranked from lowest to highest according to their number. So if if a rule is numbered 1, it will be more like it will be given more priority than the rule rank like rule numbered on 100. Okay, so if you are having three rules, let's say rule number 1, uh, let's just have, let's say you are having one rule 1, and this is saying that allow IP1. Okay, and you are having rule number 2, which is saying disallow IP1. So this rule will be given more priority and this rule will be ignored because this rule has lower number rank than the this rule. This is clear. So the you can write any number of rules, okay, by giving, like, you can see that here you can give your own number. So if you are adding any rule, I can just say this is one rule and all traffic deny. Okay, now this rule will be given more priority than this rule because it's 100 rank, this is 1 rank. And if I sort by rule number, this will be given more priority, so this rule will be ignored. So when there is any conflict between the rules, okay, then the rule with the lower number will be given more priority than the other rules. And there are again rules which are pertain to security ACL or network ACL are nothing but first is like what kind of ports can be accessed, where the like let's say you can set which port should be open and which port should be closed. Okay, so why port opening or port closing is important? Haken. Yeah, but why the port opening and port closing is important? Yeah. Yeah, so if you are opening some port, okay, mostly ports are due to security issues. So you should know which port is opened and which port can be accessed by which like which number of people or which number of IP addresses. Now we have inbound rules which are usually like what is the incoming traffic, and outbound rules what is the outgoing traffic. Now we are seeing here that you can select and you can either deny that particular like access, deny access to particular IP addresses or allow access to that particular IP addresses. Okay, that's why it's called as access control list, because it is deciding which uh, number of incoming traffic or what kind of traffic is allowed and what kind of traffic is denied. Now, what is the difference between security group and network ACL? Now, a security group is for a particular instance and it operates at an instance level. So uh, it can only have like one instance and one security group, and this security group is having some kind of filter for this particular instance, what is the incoming traffic and what is the outgoing traffic. But access control list or network access control list is at a subnet level. Okay, in a subnet you can have any number of instances, right? Now security group can only allow, so you don't see any deny there. Okay, but network ACL can allow the rules and also deny some rules. Now, when we are allowing or disallowing something, we are considering something known as IP address, Internet Protocol addresses. Now, how many kinds of IP addresses are supported by AWS? I think you were taught this, right? How many AWS like IP addresses are supported by AWS? Can you tell me, or Brandon? Hello. What kind of IP addresses? Like there is public IP, private IP, and elastic IP. Now you cannot access any private IP over the internet. Okay. So whenever you are in the same virtual private cloud, okay, then only you can access any instance using private IP address. So any other private IP address which is outside the virtual private cloud cannot access the instances which are inside a different virtual private cloud. So for an private IP address to access a EC2 instance, both the EC2 instance and private IP should be in the same VPC. Now IP address is allotted to each user, right? Now if this user's private IP is in the same virtual private cloud as the EC2 instance, then only a particular user can communicate with the EC2 instance. Now, what is public IP? What is a public IP? Can Brandon? Okay. So, public IP address is nothing but it's reachable over the internet. Okay. So, if you are having any EC2 instance, okay, and you want to communicate it through internet, then you need to have a public IP address. So, now whenever we say private, the private itself mentions that it should be in the same virtual private cloud. That's why it's called virtual private cloud and private IP. Okay. But public is that you can even communicate outside the network. So even though you're not inside the virtual private cloud, okay, you can still communicate with the EC2 instance from the outside. That is public IP. Now let's see your understanding. If this is a VPC, and in this VPC I'm having a EC2 instance and this, and there is a private IP1 here. there is a public IP here, and one more private IP, two here, and a public IP, two here. And this whole thing is your VPC. Now tell me, which of them, which of the four can access this EC2 instance? Okay. Which of them can access this EC2 instance? One is private IP1, okay. Okay. And yes. And this cannot access it, right? Because it is outside the virtual private cloud. Okay. Now there is another thing called as elastic IP. Okay. Elastic IP is nothing but you can allocate a particular public IP to your account. Okay. Like you can give your own IP address, like whatever you need, and you can allocate it to your particular AWS account, and you can associate that particular IP address to your instance so that your instance can be controlled through the public IP address, and this IP address will remain allocated to your account unless you delete it or terminate it. So it is like you are making your own public IP and you are associating it to your AWS account, and you are also associating it to your instances. Now, there even AWS also supports multiple IP addresses. So now, why will you require multiple IP addresses to an instance? Any idea? So you are having a AWS EC2 instance and you are having multiple IP addresses for that particular instance. So let's say you are having short websites, okay, and you don't want someone to enter one IP and get all the websites, right? You want each website in that particular EC2 instance, okay, to have a specific IP, right? So if you are having five websites, you will give it five different IP addresses and you will try to access them using five different IP. So let's say one website is cooking website, one website is gym website. So you don't want uh, only one IP for these two websites, right? There will be a conflict. So for cooking a website, you'll have a different IP, and for a gym website, you'll be having a different IP. No, no, no. What we will do is like we'll create different VPC. We'll be doing that in the I think in the next class. Okay. So So first thing is that like for now, what is your task is you have to create a VPC. Okay. So whatever we have learned today, okay, the ACL, VPC, and security group. Okay, you will be creating one security group which will be like a default, so it will be allowing all traffic, and you'll be creating it for SSH, HTTPS, and HTTP and port will be default port for now. And in the same way, you will be creating access control list, default one. Okay, so this is your homework. So first, you have to create a network ACL, and second, you have to create a security group. Yeah, you have created it already. It's just kind of like a practice session. Okay, and so as of now, it's like at that time you created it to make something run, but now it's mostly because you're seeing it in terms of security, like you are trying to manage the identity, right? So, so that is the thing you have to do. So, I think we can end it till today, and tomorrow we can start uh, making more, like adding roles and everything. So, just complete the homework. Uh, I'm giving less homework because I think it's Christmas week for you, and just complete the. I think Brandon already completed the connection of EFS to multiple EC2 instances. Can you also complete and send me the result? Okay.